Let's get it. Back again. So I officially missed a week. Not really because I'm gonna drop two in this week, try to make up for the other week. But I mean, technically, I missed a week. Now, getting straight into it, man. I'm just praying for this conversation. You know what I'm saying? I'm praying that God just keeps me from stumbling, keeps me from wavering, keep me from getting upset, and saying some things. I don't think it's always wrong for you to get upset. You know what I'm saying? The Bible says be angry and don't sin. You know what I mean? And sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire. Sometimes you gotta meet people where they're at and clap back, right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes vehement debates are good. Now I'm good with this stuff. I like debating. People know me. I like engaging with people. People know me, and I'm willing to and open to the public for people to come on here, talk to me, whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? And I could chop it up with you. I could like call your point stupid. I can call you an idiot right in front of your face, and like we could have it out. You know what I'm saying? And we could talk about your issues. I mean, or the issues. You know what I'm saying? We could hash it out, and I'm cool with you challenging me vehemently and whatnot. And we disagree, and then at the end of it, we walk away. We dap each other up. A good conversation. Boom, 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 and we keep it moving. And it's love. I still love people. But, the Bible basically shows us that we gotta hate sin and love the people anyways, right? And so we gotta be able to disagree. We gotta be able to chop it up. Sometimes when you're doing this, you gotta come at it strong and whatnot. Jesus, when he talked to, the Pharisees and other people, sometimes he was cold in his responses to them. Sometimes he was sort of rude in his responses to them anyways, you know what I mean? Some of y'all would condemn Jesus even with the way y'all talk. My bad, fam. Anyway, eyes chinky. I'm a little bit tired still, but it's gonna be a fun video anyways. Now, full context of this video anyways, right? The Charlie Kirk situation happened. Dilly Boy came out, said some things. Dilly Boy has been posting. I love Charlie Kirk. I love his body of work. I love what he did for, our whole cultural sphere and the effect and the impact he's had on, the youth in a positive way. I rock with a lot of his values and things like that. So, I be on my, soapbox. I be posting and posting. Everything I see, I want to post. You know what I'm saying? And of course, we got some people that don't necessarily rock with Charlie Kirk. It is what it is. Here's what I'm going to say, though, right away. The vast majority of people do. Even people on the left now are coming around, and even people who disagree with him, they're just like, nah, fam. Like, they stay quiet, they stay to themselves, or if they say anything at all, they'll just be like, yo, y'all are wild, fam. Because the left, some people are celebrating, some people, and I'm gonna say those voices are amplified. It's like they get a lot of clout, you know what I'm saying? And bad news carries. Yesterday we was at a barbecue that we put on for the Toronto police. I seen the faces of some of them people and interact with them. The police, they were really moralized by this whole program, and they really loved it, and they felt like they needed it, and it's like a boost because too often as a community we neglect these type of individuals. You know what I'm saying? We even demonize these type of individuals because you know what? Bad news carries. Every time you got like some act of police brutality or something like that, oh man, that carries. But yo, you don't see the millions and millions of micro sacrifices and major sacrifices, macro sacrifices that these people make every day, the love that they show every day, the grace that they show every day to people. You know what I'm saying? I, for one, growing up in the streets of Toronto, being a young bro, going around, running around with the crowdies, doing a lot of things that shouldn't have been done. I experienced, you know, just kindness from Toronto police and things like that when I look back over the scope of my life. You know what I mean? Praise be unto the Most High God who preserved me and kept me anyways. But, I've seen the love that these people have. And often it's like that, right? You got something like the Charlie Kirk situation happening, and then you got, a couple of radical, weird voices running around screaming, dancing, celebrating, like, you know what I'm saying? And then that gets amplified as if that's the vast majority of people because you see it a lot, you know what I mean? And it spreads and we tend to focus on it, but for the vast majority of people are very sensible on this. for the vast majority of people, are very like, vehemently opposed to the fact to this shooting and the situation at hand, and like sensitive, and they, even though they might not agree with the man on many things, they see him as a virtuous character and whatnot. But we got some people, and so today I want to make a video. I'm gonna respond to one person in particular, and you know who you are. I'm not gonna mention your name, but I'm gonna drop the video for you anyways, unks. You know what I'm saying? But this uncle just be in my comment section making a whole lot of noise. And as I was about to like write him a whole response, I was reading through it and I'm like, you know what? But I don't got time to respond to one individual. I thought I would make this into a whole video for just responses in general to the type of things that are being levied against Charlie Kirk. Now, it's going to be a weird video because I'm going to be reading as if I'm reading to somebody specific, but I want y'all to generalize and just take in what I'm saying overall as a factor, and I'm going to talk about each point that I make throughout it just a little bit. Anyway, already getting into it. Where we at? 6-minute marker. All right, let's see. So I'm gonna probably call this one defending Charlie Kirk again, and so let's see where we're at to start with. So the first thing I said is because this specific individual basically said that Charlie Kirk is racist and hateful, essentially. So my response is, oh really? Charlie Kirk, renowned around the world for fighting for conservative and Christian values, is hateful and racist? You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all think about that for a second, you know what I mean? I'm asking, right? Show the quotation of Charlie Kirk in full context where you get these ideas from, and we can talk about it. You know what I mean? Because what's happening a lot of times is people are just levying, oh, racist. And this is how the left and these people engage. You know what I'm saying? They engage in diagnosis. Instead of like talking about the points that are being made and engaging with the points that are being made openly and honestly in full context, well nuanced conversation, showing that they understood what was being said, comprehended what was being said, and refuting what was being said, all they do is be like, you're racist, this, that. You say, well, there's a border crisis at the southern border, and we really shouldn't be letting that much people in. We're not able to vet them properly. They're not coming in through a legal process. We don't know who's coming in. We have some enemies of the state that are possibly coming in. Some people who don't rock with our ideology or our values coming in. We have people who are fleeing, potentially justice in their own country, coming in and crossing the border to try to escape. You know what I mean? I don't know, whatever gang activities or, what I'm saying? Whatever warrants are out for their arrest and things like that, and we just don't know what's happening. So we want to, we're thinking it's cool, let's just kind of keep the border on lock or something like that. Let's try to get this thing under control. Let's not go through, they come in illegally, they're here without any due process. Then we got to put them through a due process. There's a whole backlog in the system, and then they got to go back out. We can't do that. Let's close the border. Let's allow legal immigration. Nobody on the, maybe some weirdos, but I'm engaged in this world. Nobody's saying close the border completely. People are saying allow people to come through proper ports of entry with the proper documentation, go through the proper procedures in order so that we can have a country and have a border. And I live, I'm gonna tell y'all, I live in Canada, but I'm talking about the US and what the US is saying. This is also affecting Canada, by the way, but you know what I mean? Sake of this discussion, we're talking about the US, right? And so we're saying something along those lines. Somebody could say, well, it's not compassionate, it's not humanitarian, like, we do need to go through some sort of human some kind of process in order to, like, hash this thing out, and we shouldn't just ship people back. What if there's mistakes being made? There's ways that you can argue for the other side, and we can get into a nuanced discussion. Instead, most people will be like, "You're racist." You know what I'm saying? You're racist. It don't matter. It don't matter if you're brown and saying this. I'm a brown man. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter if you're black and saying this. I see many black people. I've seen Tatum, many different people arguing these same points across the board, and obviously, have well over half the country voted for these men. So, you know, people are, and this is what we call the silent majority, by the way, right? Because a lot of times the left is so quick to label people, oh, yo, you're racist, you're this. They're just doing diagnosis on people. You know what I'm saying? In debate, we call that ad hominem. They don't engage with what you're actually saying. Instead, all they do is call you names. Oh, you're racist, you're bigot, you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? Psh, come on, man. Nice your week. Like, let's get into an actual conversation. Let's talk about some actual issues. Let's, hash it out and debate about it. And this is something Charlie Kirk was into. This is something Charlie Kirk was doing, and obviously he was doing it very effectively. And what I'm saying, that's why they pew pewed my boy. You know what I'm saying? They tried to stop the momentum. You know what I mean? Not because of hate or nothing, because they couldn't engage with the points that may be made. I will say though, it is because of hate, because what people who are like this uncle and other people are doing is basically, if you keep calling a man fascist, you keep calling the man, by the way, it's fascism what happened to him, when what these people are celebrating that happened to him, that's fascism. Because you know why? Like, that's shutting down, you know what I mean, dissent. That's shutting down people engaging in nuanced conversations and stuff like that. That's trying to control the narrative and put fear in people so that they wouldn't come out and say, their common sense perspectives, by the way. You know what I mean? These are not like wild perspectives that this guy had. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's see where we at. So I'm saying, let's talk about these ideas, right? I said, otherwise, stop slandering a dead man and implicitly justifying his murder. These are the lies that caused this murder in the first place, and by continuing to lie about him after he was brutally murdered is wild. You know what I'm saying? This point that I'm making is kind of, to me, it's like, I don't know, bro. Again, people just lost their humanity, bro. They lost their ability to reason and stuff like that. Because in a time where someone dies, even if you disagree with him, even if you think he was racist, even if you think he was like, whatever you think he was, right? I mean, celebrating, and you always see people engaging in the butts. You know what I'm saying? They're always, that sounds so wrong. They're always saying, oh, this guy was, he shouldn't have been killed, and da da da. But this, but that, but he was a racist. Come on, man, tap your knives. Let's think for a moment, right? Let's say your grandfather, which most of your guys' grandfathers was racist or is racist or are racist. Most of y'all, like yourself, say some racist stuff regularly. In fact, I booked my unks saying some pretty racist stuff already. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the people that cry racism are some people, pretty racist people. I guarantee you, if I talk to enough people that are close to y'all, some of y'all, you know what I'm saying? We can find worse clips. We could find worse things. And it might not be in a video clip, but we could find worse things that y'all said in your lifetime. You know what I'm saying? That sounds pretty racist, especially if we were willing to like not engage charitably with what you're saying and twist your words and whatnot. But let's say poor old grandpa just died. You know what I'm saying? It's not the time for mans to be calling you and saying, oh, your grandfather, you shouldn't have died the way that he died. And, I wish, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry for his widow. And, but he was rich. But he was this. But he was that. Like, what is that? What kind of demon spirit do you guys have, fam? Like, you know what I'm saying? To be coming out and like talking, even if the man was wrong, like, why not chill for a second, bro, let it pass a little bit. You know what I mean? If you have a problem with some point that was made, attack the point. You know what I'm saying? Attack the actual point. You know what I'm saying? And go after that. Like, you know what I mean? At least for now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. Am I making sense, man? Because I feel like that's common sense. Like, you don't. It's really weird for you to come out when someone dies a brutal death, the way the man did, and then start talking, all this negative stuff. It really feels like you're justifying his death, and it even feels like you're justifying the deaths of people like myself and other people who share the same views. And if you engage logically, you're justifying your own death as well, because by you saying that, implicitly suggesting that, something that can be construed as hateful or racist or something like that, can sort of like, I don't know, justify someone's death. Now, I'm not saying this particular uncle is, but I'm saying there's an implicit justification when you do this type of thing, right? By you saying that at the time, then it kind of turns back on you, doesn't it? Because someone is going to interpret what you're saying as hateful. Someone's going to interpret what you're saying as racist. Someone's going to interpret what you're saying as, like, rude or whatever it is that y'all are levying against my dog, anyways. All right, let's see. So, I'm not going to make this point, but I'll say this. If you're coming to my page, fam, and you want to, like, spew your nonsense, you came to the right place, you know what I'm saying? For some smoke, because like I said, I like the smoke, you know what I'm saying? But, it's weird for me, right? Y'all got your own pages and y'all got your things to do on there. You could do your thing. And I mean, whatever, it's a public forum. I disagree. And in fact, it helps me in a way. You come and comment here. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's wild for you to come onto my page and start talking some nonsense out here, because, you know what I'm saying, you should expect a response. You know what I'm saying? And, you know what I mean? Again, we're matching energy. However you're coming, whatever you're saying, we're going to clap back. You know what I'm saying? This dude that I'm defending right here, right now, I mean, he don't need my defense, but at the same time, this is somebody who, I feel close to. This is somebody who I feel like I have a lot of love and respect and admiration for, and a lot of people feel that way. You know what I mean? So for you to come on someone's page talking nonsense when they think, I mean, do that on your own page, fam. Go on your own page, post your nonsense. You know what I'm saying? I seen this same uncle posting nonsense after nonsense. One of the things I saw on this uncle's page, right? He posted something saying, "Oh, well, we know now that the killer was." I'm paraphrasing, by the way. The quote was basically saying, "Oh, they're trying to make it look like this is not one of their own. That this is not somebody from the right that did it." You know what I'm saying? Too early. Too early. Nonsense again. And why is it? First of all, this is one of the biggest, leading, most effective talking heads from the right. You know what I mean? If I make a mistake and mix up the right and left, sometimes I'll be doing that. You know what I mean? Just brain thing, whatever. You guys understand what I'm saying, right? But he's from the right. You know what I'm saying? And then he was murdered while he was speaking on campus. You know what I'm saying? If that ain't evidence that this is not somebody who rocks with his values or supports the things that he's saying, then I don't know what is. Then, on top of that, spoke too soon. Now it comes out. Now the mom and the dad is saying, hey man, like, he's been becoming more and more like radicalized on the left for a little while. And the reasoning in this post that was given, by the way, is that his family was on the was on the the right. You know what I mean? Really? Like, you think that's conclusive evidence for somebody's political views? Their parents had that political view, you think that I don't know what world people live in and what kind of reasoning skills people have. You know what I mean? How do you think that is justification? How do you think that is something? And then reposting something like that. You know what I mean? With that kind of logic in it. You know what I mean? How many people y'all know are Christians with Christian value and the kids are not Christian? You know what I'm saying? How many people y'all know with all kinds of differences in their family structure and all kind of debate? How many times do you see people sit around a dinner table and argue and debate because not because you're from the same family means you share the same values. This is just very poor reasoning skills. You know what I mean? Then it comes out that my Dukes has been more and more radicalized on the left. Then it comes out that my Dukes is in a relationship with a trans, what do you call that? Trans woman. He was in basically a homosexual relationship, but it turns out that the person he's with was transitioning. I saw somebody say, well, how does that work? Like, do they have to break up after? Because then isn't he gay? Or like, what, I mean, this world of this nonsense doesn't have to make sense because how you making sense out of nonsense anyways don't make no sense. It feels like I shouldn't even be arguing. My mama, sorry, mama, sorry. You know what I'm saying? Because my mama told me not to do this. You know what I'm saying? She's like, don't go on. I'll up yourself with people. But I'm doing this because a lot of other people are engaging like this and I want to what I'm saying, help out or, share my thoughts on it anyways. And I want to try to help people to think about these things overall. Plus I want y'all to know how to respond to these type of things when y'all see it anyways. Plus I want to have these things in video form so that I don't have to waste time over and over again responding to one particular individual. I could just drop the video to as many people as possible and help as many people as possible or help to refute as many people as possible. Again, you might not be this uncle, but you might think like him. You might not be this uncle, but you might have been reposting the same nonsense like him. You might not be this uncle, but you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Maybe this will kind of hit you in the crossfire. Anyway, it's not crossfire. It's a buckshot. It's meant to catch everybody that's on that side, essentially, right? Alrighty, where was I? All right, so talking about coming to my page for the nonsense. Let's talk about this point, right? I personally watch almost all of Charlie Kirk's content and can/have shown many videos of him expressing the total opposite of hates for blacks. You know what I'm saying? You can actually see those videos on my feeds, and I'm betting that Unks did not watch any of those videos, you know what I'm saying, in full context. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. If I was a betting man, that's what I would bet. You know why? Because I could see these mans again. It's a laziness. It's a form. It's like somebody messaged me. They said people don't have the attention span now these days. People not even gonna watch. I bet y'all don't watch these videos in full. That's okay, but you know what I'm saying. A lot of people will clip somebody up, misrepresent their point, and they're not watching these videos in context. Now, you got to explain to me what it is that, I'm going to give you guys an example of what I'm saying. Sometimes you read a verse in the Bible, then you read another verse in the Bible. I'm going to make a video called Fate in the Works. It's a part of our dichotomy series. The dichotomy is set up two things that seem just opposing. In the scripture, it says, it is by grace through faith that you're saved, not by works that any man should boast. And then in other places, it talks about, if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. In other places, it talks about, if you do these type of things, you won't be forgiven. If you neglect to help the poor and the needy and the people who are in jail and sick, you won't be forgiven. Or if you deny Christ before other people, you won't be forgiven. And the verses are clear. So it seems like there's a contradiction, doesn't it? But what you have to do is you have to be able to engage with the totality of the text, and then you have to be able to merit what's being said. Meaning, and let me give you guys a quick cheat code for this one. For instance, what is being said is that it's the grace of God that saves you, because it's a free gift of salvation that's given by God's grace by Christ on the cross. However, it's your faith that or your faithfulness that receives this gift. Now, faithfulness refers to something a lot more transcendent than just assent, intellectual assent. So then that means that you express, your faith or your faithfulness through your good works. You know what I'm saying? Through forgiveness, through the way you interact with other people, loving and caring for them outside. And so that's called a merit of the two things. Now, if you're seeing Charlie Kirk saying something in a particular clip, and then you're seeing all these other clips of him saying all types of other things, we're going to get into some of that just now, that seem to suggest the exact opposite, then what do you left to think? Is he racist or is he not? Because some things he says sounds racist, and then sometimes it doesn't sound racist. You know what I'm saying? You have to take the full context of what he's saying overall, and then you'll understand the nuances. This is a word I use a lot. People don't like it, but it is a good word. There is nuances, you know what I mean, to what people are saying. I'll give you guys another example. There's something called the Islamic dilemma. Islamic dilemma is this idea that the Quran sort of affirms the biblical text. However, the biblical text disagrees with the Quran. So then it's either the Quran is wrong because it affirms a text that disagrees with it, or if the Quran, if the Bible is corrupted, then the Quran is affirming is saying that this thing is right, but the Bible is corrupted. You know what I'm saying? So either way, they're trying to say that I might have botched that a little bit, but you guys get the point. I don't want to get into it because this is just a side note. Now, the people who argue for this perspective, one of the main guys is a guy named God Logic. Now, when God Logic argues this perspective, what he does is he'll engage with the Muslim that is sort of defending against the Islamic dilemma. And so sometimes he might say, oh, then the text of the scripture is corrupted. And then he's like, so if the Bible, so the Bible is corrupted then. And then so isn't the Quran wrong when it affirms the Bible, right? And so someone might say, well, God Logic is admitting that the Bible is corrupted. No, but if you know what God Logic is doing, you understand the nuances of what he's saying. He's engaging and he's saying, okay, let's go there with you. If you say this, then by what your book is saying, your book is wrong on this. If you say that this is corrupted, so you're saying, okay, the gospel are corrupted, then that means that the Quran is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Now, somebody listening to that is going to say, God Logic is saying the Bible is corrupted. You have to understand the full context of what's happening. You have to understand the proposition that's being proposed. You have to understand the rhetoric that he's getting into. You have to understand his position in fullness. Now, if anybody listens to God Logic long enough, will be like, bro, that is not the case. You know what I'm saying? That is not the case. Like, he's not arguing that the Bible is corrupted. He's arguing that if what he means to say is if the Bible is corrupted. And so this is what's happening with Charlie Kirk. A lot of times you're seeing him standing in front of a black person with a beautiful black baby, and he's like googly eyeing this baby, and you can see his love and his admiration. You can see the smile on his face, and he's like calling this person a beautiful gift from God. You're seeing his friendships and the music of clips of him singing hip-hop songs, and like you're seeing another brother saying this guy has more soul than other black people. You're seeing him, engaging with the culture, and like, a lot of the things that he's seeing, you're seeing the love and all this type of stuff. You're seeing him like helping people. I'm gonna get into some of it more down in here. So I know those points are in here. So I don't wanna like go on into it already. Let's just keep going. But then you have to put that into context of when you see him saying something that sounds like it might be racist, especially when you're seeing a clip. You know what I mean? Like let's not get the clip. That's why I'm saying send me the videos, right? Send me the evidence. You know what I mean? Send me the transcript of the conversation. You know what I'm saying? So I can read it in full context. You know what I mean? Don't just come on my page and holler out nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Don't just like go on somebody else's page and holler out nonsense either. You know what I mean? Or don't even just go and wholesale sale swallow stuff just being given to you for you to eat it and consume it and then start thinking those thoughts without first seeing the full context of what the person is saying, the larger body work of what the person is saying, right? Who do you think should know better? You know, this is like trying to know Jesus. So let me explain this one a little bit. So who do you guys think would know better if Charlie Kirk was a racist or not? You know what I mean? Some random dude all the way in some other side of the world, like looking at his life from the outside in. What about the people who are close to him? What about his wife? What about his friends? What about his family that walks with him? Let me show you something. We all know them racist people in our family, you know what I'm saying? We all know the racist, we know them. You know what I'm saying? If somebody was to come and say, yo, that person's racist, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? He was, yeah, you know what I mean? Because we know. You know your uncle that's racist, bro. You know your auntie that's racist, you know what I'm saying? You know some of the racist thoughts of your own mama and papa. You know some of the racist thoughts of all your you know what I'm saying? You know some of your own racist thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So, you know people who are racist. Now, people in Charlie Kirk's life that are his immediate family and friends that are talking about him that are like, nah, this man's, nah, that's not true. He's not racist. You know what I'm saying? He's not like that. You know what I mean? People who are a part of his closer circle, people who are part of his acquaintances, people who are part of his team of individuals that he works around, and then people who are his followers, people who listen to his content on the daily, people who interact with his content regularly, not interacting with his content through some left wing media source or something like that, but actually listening to his debates, actually spending time listening to his podcast, actually listening to, you know what I'm saying, engaging with like a lot of his content. Who should know him more? Who should you trust? Whose word should you trust? Now, let me give you the example of Jesus, you know. When it comes to history, a lot of people say a lot of things about Jesus. You know, we got the Mormons in the 18th century or whatever talking about who Jesus is. We got the Jehovah's Witnesses in the late 19th century, whatever, talking about who Jesus is. We got, you know, Muhammad in the 6th and 7th century talking about who Jesus is. And we have all this literature later on from, you know, later church fathers and things like that. Who do you think word we should take on who Jesus is? Should we not go to the disciples? You know what I mean? Should we not go to the people who were closest to him, the people who sat with him, who ate with him, who broke bread with him, who talked with him, who were living with him for 3 years, walking around with him? You know what I'm saying? Should we not go to the earliest sources, the people who lived in the first century and was talking? Should we not go to the earliest historians? You know what I mean? Whose word are you going to take about Jesus? You going to go to Muhammad 600 years later to get your information on who Jesus is? Same way, brother. Let's think about this. Whose opinion on this should you trust? The people who are closest to him would know him and would be able to refute it. And now think about like I got some people in my life, you know what I'm saying? And when I'm talking to someone, I could reference this, but just picture somebody who you know is virtuous in your life, who you know is a solid person, a great man of God that you know. I don't know if you have somebody like, if you don't have somebody like that in your life, please find one. You know what I'm saying? They're not that like scarce. You know what I'm saying? They're in local churches, they're in local bodies, they're somewhere, right? Find you. If you don't have one, come to my church. You know what I'm saying? Find us. You know what I mean? But there's some people that if someone was to come to you and say, "Yo, this man's racist," or blah blah, even if that person said something that was racist, you know what I'm saying? You'd be like, "No, homie, no, he's not. Trust me, he's not." You know what I mean? He's not. You know, say that guy's not. Yeah, so you might have made a bad joke. He might have said this one thing that can be misconstrued. Maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe he said something he should out of line or something that he shouldn't have said. But trust me, that guy's not right. Because you, as a person who knows a person well, you'll know better than the person who's telling you. Yeah, I think there's a scripture that says something like, I'm gonna paraphrase this again. But it's something like, keep yourself in a way that when people say something bad about you, it reflects negatively on them or something like that. Which is something that I've seen happen before. I've had people go to people try to slander Daily Boy or something like that. But some of my people that know me, they're just like, they don't even think like for a second that I did that or whatever. In their brain, they're like, yeah, homie's tripping. You know what I'm saying? Because they know me like that, you know what I'm saying? Which is crazy because, I mean, I've been on both sides of the fences, by the way. So it's amazing that God has done that in my life. Now that I do have people that they wouldn't listen to certain slander about Daily Boy, and they wouldn't misunderstand. If somebody was to clip up this video right now and say, "Oh, Dale's racist," or "He's bigot," or "He's like, oh, he's homophobic," or "He's blah blah," you know what I'm saying? People will be like, "No, no, no, you don't understand that guy. That guy, like, you know what I'm saying?" Anyways, that's my next point, right? Who should you trust about who Charlie Kirk was? We should trust the people who know him, who are closer to him, who love him, and all that type of stuff, especially given a climate where there's a divide, which, by the way, like I said in the beginning, it's a smaller divide, actually. People don't realize it's a lot of people on the side of, yeah, this guy's a good guy, he's virtuous, and then it's just a minor few on the side who are openly coming out and critiquing him in this time of his tragedy, you know? And so, you know, they're kind of fringe. It's just that their voice is really loud, you know? Amplified is the word we're looking for, right? Okay, let's see what else. How is it? Okay, well, I said that. How is it possible that more people, don't think he is racist than there is? That's a good point too. Let me go back on that a little bit, right? Even the fact there's some like tapping behind me. It's just trippy. Anyways, even the fact that you got people who are on both sides of the fence on this. It just means, if anything, it means that it's inconclusive. You know what I'm saying? But it creates enough benefit of the doubt, right? Like if you have people vehemently being like, "Yeah, this guy's racist, blah blah blah," and he's hateful, and he's like, and then you got a lot of people that are like, "Nah, fam, he's not." You know what I'm saying? Then have some humility, at least admit, okay, well, you know there's something else going on here, because why do so many people think he's virtuous? You have to engage with that. And why do so many people think that he's not? Now, I've engaged with it, and I'm going to engage with it right now. And what I think is happening, he's being clipped out of context, and people are not engaging in nuances and philosophy, and they're not interpreting him charitably. And he does have some harsh truths that he tells to minority communities that people disagree with vehemently. And now, it's one thing to disagree with them on a particular perspective of like what the ailments are and what the treatments are for the black community or something like that. It's a whole nother thing for you to go out and call them a full-on racist and all this other stuff. And so that's something to think about. Why is there such a divide, right? Here's some news for you, Mr. Uncle and other people, right? Charlie Kirk did not believe race was real, but rather a social construct. He cited the fact that by looking at DNA alone, in itself, you couldn't tell the race of someone, right? So if you're looking under a microscope at DNA, you couldn't tell if this was a white person's DNA or a black person's DNA. That's the thing that he's citing. Now, how true that actually is, he said, I think if I'm remembering the clip properly, he was talking about a like front page of the National Geographic magazine. Either way, he believed this. He believed that there was no races. Like he believes that there is no difference between humanity and black people and white people is just a social construct. And he argued that as one of his points. So think, put on the thinking cap. Let's think for a bit. How could someone who doesn't believe that race actually exists be a racist? Let me read this out, right? So he acknowledged that race does have an appearance, but chooses to and encourages others to look past the difference in our appearance and base our assessments on moral, ethic, and religious and social and political views. You know what I'm saying? So he's saying don't judge people by their skin color, their looks, or their features, but judge them by their content of their character. Does that sound like something, you know what I'm saying, a racist person would say? I think not. People often misinterpreted him because he constantly derailed the victim mentality amongst African American youths while empowering them to believe that they can accomplish anything a white person can in America. This is evidenced by the fact that Obama was president. Think about what's happening there. Think about what I'm saying in this little piece of writing here. What Charlie Kirk argued a lot with people is that they can accomplish anything. He's saying you as a brown man, as a black man, as a Chinese man, as a, you know what I mean, I don't know, Japanese man, whatever, Japanese are Japanese, Chinese, anyway. He's saying you guys can accomplish anything that a white American can. This was an attempt to empower black youths that are suffering from a victim mentality. A lot of people are walking around believing, oh, it was my mama's fault, it was the white racist man's fault, it was the blah blah blah's fault, and it was them fault of my life. Nah, bro, you put on your bootstraps nice enough, and no doubt you might run into adversities. No doubt you might run into struggles, but anyone can make it in America if they strap up their boots and they try hard. And there's a lot of people who are examples of this. Again, I used Obama as an example. This was a black president of the United States. We got black CEOs, we got black inventors, we got black people doing all kinds of amazing things across the board. You know what I mean? But they're not highlighted, right? So he's saying black people can accomplish anything. This was an attempt to empower people. This is something that's often misunderstood and used to say that he was being racist. Because for the other side, it's like, man, you're not acknowledging that we went through slavery and, like, you know, we, you know, don't have generational wealth and blah, 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 blah. Now, you know, whether that's, I'm not going to engage with that right now. Whether that's true or not, by the way, you know what I'm saying? His point remains, you can make it. You know what I'm saying? Lots of people get generational wealth and squander that in no time. Lots of people had no wealth and came up in abject poverty and made it up out of the ground. You know what I'm saying? And lots of people are from brown, black descents and have done well for themselves in these countries. You know what I'm saying? And so that was his point. He was empowering them, right? He was hateful, though. You know, he hated the fact that too often abhorrent characters are positioned as role models for young black males and blamed a lot of the disparity seen in the black community on fatherlessness and the destruction of the traditional values and the traditional family. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Charlie Kirk hated the fact that not enough black kids were growing up with their father. black and other, whatever you might want to say, include some Caribbean people in that as well. You know what I mean? But that's his point. He's trying to say that fatherlessness is to blame for a lot of what the disparity that you see. And again, you might not agree with that point. You might not want to engage with that point. You might not even, you might think, okay, well, there's more nuances to it. How come the black fathers have been absent or whatever the case is? The point remains the same. He advocated for for better moral characters to be elevated into positions of as role models for black and brown youths across the world. So we do have these horrible characters. I for one, am a victim. You know what I'm saying? I loved hip hop. I loved BT, and I see, oh dog. I was thinking about how, you know, video game characters are positioned. You know what I'm saying? You got these, yo. As you look back on it now, think about it, man. Some of these, Chung Lee was not dressed appropriately for kids to be watching that. And then you wonder how come we grew up to be perverted. You know what I'm saying? Then we got like, the Mortal Kombat shorties, the katanas, and then, bro, like, go back and look at some of them outfits them girls were dressing, and look at when they kick, what you're able to see and all. You know what I'm saying? We was playing these games growing up all the time. As kids, we didn't stand a chance. We were getting choked out and cooked. You know what I'm saying? So we grew up around horrible influences. Then we grew up and Jules Santana and Dipset and, 3 6 Mafia and Ice Cube and, you know what I mean? Like, all of these people were our role models, you know what I'm saying? Big L and, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not going to list off all the names. We looked up to a lot of characters that were talking about drug game and selling drugs to the streets, and, like, and someone will say, well, that's an attack on it. But the point remains, even if you want to say, well, the Jews, they own the media company and they want to kill the black youth, so they're encouraging music that's like gonna, and some of that is probably real. But the point is, again, you have to take responsibilities for your own homes and your own lives, and keep your kids. This is what he's trying to say. Don't elevate these people in your communities up into positions as role models for your youth. That's going to glorify the drug game. That's going to glorify objectifying women. That are going to glorify, all this other gang violence and killing your own brothers. And, you know what I'm saying? When I was growing up, catching a body was like, that's a hard and a hype thing. You know what I mean? I got some friends that call bodies. Sometimes I was just talking about one of my youth the other day, and I seen him with some shorties, and I'm like, yo, what's up with these? Because there's some very pretty, beautiful, and, like, very, like, and I'm looking at these girls, and I'm like, yo, what's she doing with him? But I know what it is. He's a bad man. He already caught some bodies. That's what she want. But we've even indoctrinated our young ladies. You know what I'm saying? Every man now wants a baddie and this and that. Why? Because of the culture. You know what I mean? We all sound alike. We all talk alike. You know what I mean? I'm starting to date people now, going out, whatever, right? Meet girls or whatever. And so I'm hanging out with a shorty, and me and her just making fun. She's like, bro, she was interested in the conversations we have, right? But she's talking about, like, what the general conversation of a male about my age is, and why she doesn't enjoy talking to them, because, you know what I'm saying, a lot of them, it's all about, yo, I'm trying to get to that bag, shorty, I got the money, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to get cop me the new Louis belt and the Gucci, fam, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to stun on you, I'm trying to get my grills done, you know what I'm saying, yo, you guys sound like clowns, bro. You guys are emulating the society around you. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to, like, Mom Dukes is in the hood and can't buy groceries. Man's just spending money on Louis belts and have on Jordans and, like, you know what I'm saying, stunting on, you know what I mean, everybody across the board. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, look, I'm a victim of this type of mentality too, because I grew up in the culture. But I'm saying this man is right about the type of role models we elevate into positions, you know what I'm saying, of authority and stuff. When there are really amazing example of black inventors, of black, accomplished, PhD authors of amazing books, lead thought leaders, and what I mean, all this stuff that should be the people that we put into positions of role models in our community should be glorified in our community. And I wish that even throughout Charlie Kirk's death, this is something that we see change, right? We talk about carrying on his legacy and whatnot. Let's start with that type of stuff. Let's start encouraging people to be having sex responsibly in committed relationships. Let's start encouraging fathers to stop leaving from their youths, and let's stop objectifying our women and seeing them as meat and something to crush and move on to the next. What I'm saying, let's stop you know glorifying violence in our communities. Let's stop, what I'm saying? Let's start positioning people. Let's stop. Let's talk about it. Let's stop pushing little girls twerking on TikTok, what I'm saying, in skimpy clothing as what the algorithm is boosting and giving to you for you to watch. And how about we start, pushing kids that are involved in science experiments, kids that are, you know, uh, building things, and kids that are working on great futuristic ideas. You know what? Kids are very, very capable of doing a lot of things, and kids are very impressionable as well. If that starts to become a thing, let's create a social contagion around kids wanting to be virtuous in the world and accomplish amazing things in the world, bro. In one generation, we can fix a lot if we were to do implement this. And this is the type of stuff that my guy was advocating. But guess what people are hearing? Well, Charlie Kirk is talking about fatherlessness in the black community. That hurts me. That hurts my feelings. I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? It's a harsh reality. It's a harsh truth. Charlie Kirk is talking about role models and talking about hip hop music and the culture and black culture. That's nobody wants to hear that. You know what? He's a racist then. You know what I mean? That's what we want to do. And that's what we're doing. A lot of people are just like, yo, you're racist. You shouldn't even talk about you shouldn't even talk about fatherlessness. You shouldn't even talk about, you know what I'm saying? Nah, man. Let's keep reading. Let's see if we can keep this to an hour. I don't think so, but let's try. He hated the sorts of racketeering in the colleges and university that often wasted young people's time and lands them in overwhelming debt in far too many cases without a just reward for their sacrifices. Not to mention the fact that the colleges and universities, even grade schools and elementary schools, have become largely left winged woke indoctrination centers or camps. You know what I'm saying? So what this post is saying is he really banged out against the university system. You know what I mean? And because there are some successful cases, and there are some markers of people going to college that come out that are generally more successful and able to hold better positions. And this is largely due to the commitment and dedication that going through the school process can show to an employer or whatever. But for the large parts, a lot of people are, wow, a lot of people are graduating from these universities and colleges and can't get a job in their field, or even if they get a job, they're starting at minimum wage. And you know what I'm saying? One of the comments that I see, one of the videos I seen posted on Unk's profile was dissing Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk didn't graduate college, as if he was too dunce. And that's what it was. My Dukes left college early at the advice of some people in his life because he was so successful, so smart, so intelligent, so well rounded and debating and engaging in these conversations that they to pursue his dream, and at very young age built a super crazy empire, multi-million dollar empire, hired people that are graduating from these top universities and schools and stuff like that. And that seems to be the critique from the left. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Largely successful. By the way, lots of really successful people are not college graduates, by the way. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna toot my own horn or anything like that, but I hire people that come out of school. You know what I mean? I'm gonna tell you something. I dropped out of high school. You know what I'm saying? I don't even have a high school degree, but I started working since I was 15 years old in construction. I'm 26 year in construction right now, and bruh, I mean, financially, I'm not gonna tell y'all my finances, but you know what I mean? As far as earning income, keeping income is a different thing. Earning income, I do pretty well. You know what I'm saying? But, I engage in radical generosity, and I also, you know, admittedly have, you know, like really high expenses and like things like that. And so it tends to like, sort of dust your boy. Essentially, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. Little boy didn't say he's perfect, but what I am saying is that a lot of people that don't graduate from high school or whatever, as long as they apply themselves and they're doing something, and a lot of people who are successful really aren't successful in the area that they studied in or something like that. A lot of some auntie, I know some people that had like high level education and makes more money baking and selling cookies. See, they cook rotis and just sell it to the local shop or whatever. They're making more money than, what I'm saying, they were ever able to make. Or they left their job to help run their husband's shop or something, what I'm saying, whatever, and they make way more money from that, what I mean? And a lot of people find most of their success when they're starting to invest, when they're starting to open up businesses, when they're starting whatever, right? So, and or a lot of their wealth comes from that. In fact, a lot of people's wealth is from real estate investments. Of course, their job might have gotten them into a position where they could save a few pennies and start that initial investment, but after that, their wealth is built off of that type of stuff. Whew, 5:56. Let's see. These are very uncomfortable truths. Uh, this is a helpful taboo, a helpful and taboo reality slash criticism to say out loud, and a popular opinion shared by many, including black talking heads. That opinion by itself is not racist. You know what I'm saying? So for someone to say, hey man, you know, these issues around the college and universities, these issues around black fatherlessness, these issues around, what I mean, the social sort of like culture that we've created for ourselves, they're not congruent with flourishing for our people in our communities. You could argue with it, but you can't say that in itself is not racist. It's an opinion about what is causing it. And a lot of times, okay, it's and both. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be honest with you. There was things that I can look at throughout the past that has affected the black community negatively, and it does have sort of a perpetual effect. Now, I still agree though that as an individual, you get to like determine what your life is going to be. And I want to empower people the way Charlie would have wanted to empower people, so that they could pull up themselves and not be victims. And a lot of, people would agree with me on that. You know what I'm saying? And let me show you something. A lot of the stuff that we label as racism is not necessarily racism. Even people like, I know, like I went to apply for a job at a community one, at a kitchen cabinet factory, and it was all Tamil people working there. Now they asked me the question, and I answered it incorrectly because I'm Guyanese, I'm not Tamil, and I didn't get the job. And I'm convinced that if I were Tamil, I would have had a better chance of getting a job. Is that racism? No, it's not, because they're all from one community, that they all work there together, they all speak the same language together, they all eat their kutu, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could share. I don't know, man. Like, whatever. I don't think they're racist. I don't think they hate Guyanese people and that's why they didn't hire me. You could say that I didn't get hired because of my race, but they're not racist. They just want someone that fits their community. They would have loved to chill with Daly on the side. They would have loved to make me their friend and like hang. But you know what I'm saying, it's a different story. This is the person that they feel fits their job position. Not saying there's no time where that could be seen as racist, but I'm saying that a lot of times some of the things that get mislabeled as racist is not racist. I'll give you an next example of something that is a little more meh, right? So I worked among a lot of white people. You know what I mean? I would go to certain neighborhoods when I was like first back here. I would go to these, construction, you go wherever the job is. And so we'd be out in the boonies, Petawawa, and you know what I'm saying? I don't know where Brantford and whatever, right? Largely white communities out there. And primarily, I'm gonna tell you, with the young people, we did well. Like the young white people in Petawawa and those places, they loved us, man, loved us. I don't even want to tell you some of the stories from there. You know what I'm saying? Wild, but the some of the older heads on the construction site, especially, there was a little bit of a disdain, and I came to figure out. And a lot of times they'll rivet you if you're good at shooting it back at them and whatnot, and they're your boys. Like they'll drink with you, they'll hang out with you. You know what I'm saying? Them times Dilly Boy used to drink. Forgive your boy, but you know, engaging with them, a lot of them became my friends. Now, there was some kind of weirdness about when you show up on the site, and I'll tell you what I figured out. What I figured out is a lot of these mans were living real nice prior to us coming on the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Back in the days, and even now, we've got more and more people coming in that are willing to take the minimum wage jobs, that are willing to do these same jobs for like minimum wage that maybe a Canadian citizen would want $24, $25 an hour to do. And so we've got cases on cases of that happening. And then so a lot of these guys, I'm gonna give you guys a caricature. It's kind of true though, right? You ever seen that one scenario where five guys are standing around, one guy's digging the hole, and the other guys are standing around watching him in like a nice vest or whatever, right? Oh, man's getting paid $50 an hour. Gone are those days, by the way. It doesn't happen no more. Everybody has to slave out, right? But you know, indeed, a lot of that was connected to immigration in a way, right? Immigrants helped to build the country, yeah, but we also did kind of come in, a lot of us, and take on things that were happening, jobs and stuff like that, for a lot cheaper, and like undercutting the market and ultimately messing up a flow for these guys. Now, you could say it's racist because when they see us, they don't like us initially. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think so. I think they don't like an idea of what we've done to an industry that they used to, kind of drain the milk and honey from. You know what I'm saying? These mans were living nice, short. Some mans lost their house. Some mans couldn't pay their bills. Some mans end up having to actually work for a living. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, you know, I could see something else there that's not necessarily racist. In a way, I don't think they hate me because I'm brown. I think they didn't like the idea of what we meant showing up at the job site. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or not to y'all, but it makes sense to Dali. That's all that matters. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I hope you guys get it. Whoa. All right. Let's see where we were. Let's see. Okay. Some of his closest friends, referring to Charlie Kirk again, some of his closest friends were black people, which, contrary to popular belief, does count for something. Friends, after all, are the family we choose. Now, a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I had black friends, and people will say that doesn't count. I'm here to tell you it does count. It does count. It's a cumulative case. It doesn't mean that it's conclusive, but it means that, like, generally, someone chose to be friends with someone that's of a different race than them, and chooses to have them around their friends and family, chooses to bring them in their house, chooses to share closest secrets with them and love on them. And you know what I'm saying? That counts for something against racism. It counts for a lot, actually. It does, you know what I'm saying? And so, again, You know what I mean? That's an argument for why Charlie Kirk is not a racist. Bet you didn't know Charlie Kirk, through Turning Point USA, has organized events like the Young Black Leadership Summit, ooh, which focuses on empowering black youth and developing leadership skills. It's significant initiative that it's a significant initiative that aims to support black leadership and provide mentorship and resources. What? Charlie Kirk? The racist? Black Leadership Summit? Come on, man. Significant initiative? I don't know. That's not, you know what? Let's forget that. Let's clip that out of the video because that's not congruent with the fact that he's a racist, right? You know what I mean? Let's clip that out of his life. Let's just, chop it up. Some of y'all deal with the Bible like this, you know what I'm saying? Y'all want to clip out pieces of the Bible so it doesn't say, oh, that verse, it doesn't mean. Charlie Kirk said he's not racist, that he loves black people, that he wants to see them thrive. And oh, that doesn't count. He doesn't mean that. That's just him covering his tracks. That's just him trying to make it look like he's not racist, right? I had to simmer down with the gestures. I actually cut my own video with my gestures. I believe there's a way to gesture this thing to stop it, I had to start it back. I'm gonna have to clip this video together. Yeah, so, that's not real, is it? You know what I'm saying? That's not him. And a lot of people do engage like that. They are so dogmatic about something that if the man says directly, no, like, I love black people, I love the civil rights movement, I actually like really rock with what the civil rights movement did for the black community, but I just don't want it to get used for allowing people to invade women's spaces or something like that. But he's only saying he loves the black community because he wants to deceive you, because he wants to get in with the, like, I don't know, like, when you start thinking like this, bro, you sound crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, I'm not saying people are not disingenuous sometimes and you're not using your brain, but you have to be able to, again, interpret everything in context, in fullness, try to understand all the nuances of what's being said all together and put it together. You know what I'm saying? So let's go on. I understand that many of you don't really watch Charlie Kirk in full context, but you only receive sound bites and clips from the left-wing media sources, and you probably don't take the time to properly investigate the claims or to deep dive into the nuances of what is being said. This is just laziness and bearing false witness. This is what's happening a lot. People are just getting these clips. They're really fond of the left-wing media. They've like sort of grown up on it. They end up in an echo chamber. They end up tunnel vision. All they see is news from particular outlets. They don't really engage with the other news. If they do see something like that, they unfollow it or they hate it. They don't like it. So all they get is this little room that they're in where everyone is chanting the same set of things over and over again. And so they become lazy when they see something, a clip, they just believe it off the bat. They don't go to the clip, they don't try to investigate it, they don't try to read it, they don't try to understand the nuances, nothing. They just, oh yeah, Charlie Kirk said that he is a racist. You know what I'm saying? He's hateful. Oh, he's against the civil rights movement. Oh, he once said that Whoopi Goldberg and these guys are DEI hires. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, there is a context to each conversation. I personally looked into all the videos in which they claimed he was racist and can refute them all so far. So far, every single video where someone sent me where they said, hey, look, Charlie Kirk is being racist here. I go and I look at the full context of the video and I listen to what the man is saying and I'm like, nope. That's not it, bro. You guys, I'm like, and a lot of times, even some of the things that people, like, there are some things that he said directly, but a lot of those things I agree with. You know what I mean? Even the stuff that sounds kind of racist. You know what I'm saying? Again, like some of the things that I mentioned. I'll give you one here, right? However, upon further investigation, he was so let me give you an example. There's this one clip circulating in which he appears to suggest that he wouldn't trust black pilots. That one, it sounds weird. Like when you see that, you're like, yo, I wouldn't trust a black pilot. Why? Because he's black. That's why you think he can't fly a plane. Like, oh, black man can't fly a plane. Anyways, like that's what you think is happening when you hear that. However, upon further investigation, he was referring to airlines where DEI policies were implemented, facilitating the hiring pilots based on sex and race rather than merits. His argument is that without the DEI program, he would not think twice seeing a black pilot, but that that DEI has this undesirable effect. Then he went on to talk about DEI and how it would affect sports or something like that. He was just trying to prove his point. His point is you do not hire people for positions based on their sex or race. In fact, that's sexist and racist, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? He's saying that you should hire them based on merits, right? This policy itself, while it is well intended, has become the thing it seeks to correct, right? Charlie's position is that we should be colorblind and shouldn't see race at all. Rather, people should be judged for the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Isn't that radical? Side note, this policy can and has been criticized as an insult to many accomplished African American and women who do actually earn their position based on merits, qualification, discipline, perseverance, hard work, and commitment, etc., etc. Right? This was his point. His point is that, you know, many people that are black and like, but, and, like that are African Americans and are, of another gender. By the way, let me just say that DEI primarily, the people who reap the most benefit from it are people from the LGBTQ community and, white liberal women essentially. So, you know what I'm saying? The black community did see a benefit from it. However, again, this is kind of insulting. It's like they're saying, as a black man, you can't qualify or you won't be able to get the position. Now, someone would disagree with me and we could talk about it or whatever, right? But the point is, what he's saying is you should judge people by merit. Meaning, if a black guy and a white guy is there and the white guy fits the position better, give it to the white guy. If he's more qualified, if he's able to do the job better, if, what I'm saying, he shows up on time and he works hard and he's diligent, what I'm saying, give it to, if the black guy, vice versa, is more qualified, is willing to show up on time, is willing to work hard and dedicated and all this type of stuff, give it to the black guy, because you're basing it on people's morals, their characters, their actual qualifications, rather than their skin color. I mean, it's very logical, very common sense argument. You know what I mean? DEI and these like different things seek to fight fire with fire. They seek to fight racism with racism, just creating more racism and things like that. We have to learn. He's trying to say we have to learn as a community to just see people on the basis of their character and not their skin color. So I mean, again, you can argue, you can say, well, like systematically over time, people have gotten into certain positions and like, some people are not getting the chance. So, DEI does help because then it like, allows some positions to at least open up for where certain companies are going to have to hire at least a certain percentage of minority groups and things like that. You can argue with him if you want. What you can't say is that he's racist. You can say that his position is wrong, that he's wrong on this, and like he's not understanding it fully. You could say he's chubby if you want to say he's chubby, but at the end of the day, you know what I mean? That's a difference of opinion. That's a different, and maybe even both of you guys are right. Maybe we should just be dealing with merit, but because we're not dealing with merit, maybe, what I'm saying, it's good to have a quota or something like that, right? But my point is, the statement originally seemed like he was saying black pilots are concerning because he doesn't think black people are qualified to do that job. But he's saying that in light of DEI has this weird effect where when you see a black person, you're thinking, are they actually the best person for the job? Or did they get hired because this airline has a DEI program? And should I be worried? You know what I'm saying? If you have a surgeon working on you, you just want the best surgeon. You don't want one that's like, you know what I'm saying, there because they're Japanese or Chinese or there's some sort of quota that has to be met. That's his point. Very common sense, very logical. And I don't understand what y'all on about. Anyways, again, it's important to pay attention to what's being said in context, being able to reason critically, understanding nuances, rhetoric, philosophy, etc. Now, I feel like this is an area people actually struggle with, and it's fine, right? If you're like if you really don't understand what's being said, I like having certain people around me because sometimes I make certain jokes, and it's only certain people get. Yo, I don't know. Let me tell you, big up to my daughter. I love her so much. You know what I'm saying? She's my favorite person in the world, basically. You know what I'm saying? Other than Jesus is my daughter, and for real, like, it's comfortable hanging around her. She's super affectionate, she's super loving, she's super smart, and like she really gets me. She really gets my jokes and stuff like that. But some people don't understand rhetoric, some people don't understand philosophy, some people don't, and some people don't understand your rhetoric or your philosophy and things like that. You know what I mean? So, it's not that maybe they don't understand philosophy or rhetoric, but they might not understand your cultural background, your context, what you're talking about. They might not understand you or know you, so they don't get the joke. And sometimes, you know, back to my dating world thing, meeting people is very weird. Like, it takes a while before they get to know you. People are always like, just be yourself and just make jokes. Nah, you can't start to make certain jokes and stuff when you're first meeting people. You know what I mean? You have to get to know them. They have to get to know you. And then after they know you and stuff like that, then you can make certain jokes because, they kind of understand you better. And so, again, understanding these type of things is important in interpreting what's being said by any individual. I'm arguing that especially now in this social and political climate around the Charlie Kirk situation, right? Charlie Kirk was effective at communicating, and most people understood what he was saying, including his many black supporters. He even gave people a mic who disagreed with him. This was his whole thing, having difficult discussions openly and publicly. So, I think that people who don't understand him, there's a little bit of a lacking here. There's a little bit of like a laziness, a bit of like a unwillingness to work or to see anything. Or all right, man, my camera cut. I ran out of storage. Gee, look at that. Like, I gotta really transfer a lot of this stuff. I'm gonna just delete a bunch of videos. Anyways, I was saying there's certain dogmas and things, sort of blinders that people have, that they're unable to sort of like engage with what is happening or what's being said, essentially, to understand the nuances of the conversation. And that could be built in many ways. Even if you could find Charlie Kirk saying something racist in an overall context of his life and his body of work, should be considered as evidence to the contrary. Meaning that if you found something that was actually seemingly racist, you have to then juxtapose that to the context of his life, how he treated people, and like all this type of stuff that we talked about earlier, before you can even conclusively try to say he's racist. And this is why you have the separation of thoughts of people like me that are like, nah, fam, no, he's not. And then you got people that are like, yeah, he is, right? Okay, yeah, no, I was saying that, like, if we look across even the most virtuous characters in your life, you can always find someone in your life, or someone in their life, that's willing to say, hey man, no, this one time he said this thing that was racist, or that time this, he had this racist opinion or something like that. But you know what I mean, it's only God that's perfect, and a lot of people have things about them that you can rationalize as or someone could levy against them that might seem racist or something. Also, note that they did this to Jesus himself. They called him a racist, calling him because of him calling the Canaanite woman a dog. No context, no rational ability, just bias and dogma. They misinterpreted Jesus saying he wanted to destroy the temple. Do you guys remember this? And ultimately, they wanted to kill him for this, didn't they? So even Christ himself, who's perfect, they said that he was racist. They said that and again, it's because of some of the harsh language he used sometimes and some of the things that he was saying, and then people clipping him, misinterpreting him again, and running with it as if this is what Jesus meant to say or something like that, right? John 15:18. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first, right? Verse 20 says, remember that I told you a servant is not greater than a master, and if they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also, right? So here Jesus is saying that you're going to be hated and persecuted for standing on business for God's word, which is exactly what's happening to Charlie Kirk, the slander and those type of things, right? And this is a promise to us as well. He promises us that we'll be handed over and we'll be put to death for his name's sake. He told us that we'll be reviled and, you know, and, like people will say all kinds of false things against us, right? Matthew 10:32-39, it says, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that if that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother, and a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. I just thought these verses were powerful to read, especially in light of what's happening around Charlie Kirk, because it's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's about and about the accusations levied against him. It's about all of us. When you start to stand on business for biblical truth, you're gonna come into fire. You're gonna come into people who hate you. The world especially is gonna hate you. Satan and his minions especially are gonna hate you. You're gonna garner the attention of some people that want you dead, that want you gone, that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I've experienced it, and I'm continuing to experience it. And if you're doing something right by God, you're gonna experience it too. The light of God separates darkness from light. When you have the light of God on you, it cuts through darkness. Darkness does not like being around the light. This is something that I've experienced a lot. Sometimes it drives away the light. Sometimes it overcomes the darkness. It drives away the darkness. Sometimes it overcomes the darkness. So you'll have people in your life that will change for the better through the light of Christ in you. And then you're going to have people in your life that are going to leave because of the light of Christ and the conviction that they feel being around you, and the things that they fear being around you, being a person who is truthful and all this type of stuff, right? He said in John 12:25, anyone who loves their life will lose it, and anyone I read that one already, right? It says, so think about who you're aligned with. I'm talking to these people again on the left, right? Think about who you're aligned with. You should be ashamed. You know what I'm saying? You put, well, let's see here. Well, I already addressed that. You know what I'm saying? I was talking about the shooter, like false narratives about the shooter being on the right or something like that. Now, let me say this about that. Maybe something comes out in the future where it's like, oh, whoa, it's probably, you know what I'm saying? And then we could get into that conversation later. But as for now, it's very logical, very reasonable, and it seems like most of the case that it is a shooter who shot Charlie because he just disagreed with it. It seems like it's this kid. He seems like he's on the left for sure, and it seems like, what I mean, that's what took him out, and it's very logical, very reasonable. Now, if there's some other conspiracy, some other thing that gets uncovered, we could talk about that later. But for the most part, the left celebrated it, and they took ownership of it, and you know, um, as of now, it's kind of weird that someone would even insinuate stuff like that, especially when the evidence seems to the contrary. And it's like, just wait and see what happens instead of like, going out and then making these wild accusations without any basis for them. You know what I mean? Again, this is slander. It's false witness, right? Look at who your side is aligned with. Celebrating the cold-blooded murder of a man in front of his wife and his children, who the world is just like chanting and dancing to it. This is sick. They advocated for killing babies, abortion, genital mutilation of children. They advocated for destroying women's spaces, jeopardizing the safety of women. They largely are godless and God haters. You know what I mean? They're pretty worldly and carnal, depraved, licentious individuals. They are lost and they need help, yeah, including the alleged shooter, who was in a relationship that we know with another dude. Now, let me say this about the shooter. The shooter was a kid, man, and this shooter was also like somebody. The alleged shooter, anyways, was somebody who I think is a victim. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think. I mean, going after the particular shooter and making sure that justice is served in that way, you know what I'm saying, is great. I had this whole thing that I was going to talk about, the whole Charlie Kirk video that I was going to make separately. And in that, I was going to say, man, pray for the shooter. Pray for the shooter's family. Forgive them. I saw, today, fortunately enough, I waited long enough and I was able to actually see, the video, the memorial service that they had, and I saw his wife talking, and what I'm saying, I seen her say that she forgave this guy, and this is what our Lord and Savior would want us to do, is to extend forgiveness. He says, forgive us as we forgive others, you know what I'm saying? And so as we're asking for forgiveness, we ought to forgive other people. He says to pray for our enemies and those who persecute us. Jesus himself, dying on the cross, was praying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they've done. You know what I'm saying? I think actually that's the quote that she quoted, and that's what she was saying. And so, we operate under grace that's given to us, and we need to forgive those people, and we need to pray for this guy. How cool would it be, you know what I mean? For, let's say circumstance turns out this way, and, my guy gets the death penalty, and then he actually faces that penalty, dies, but let's say he accepts Jesus before he dies, and then he ends up going to heaven, and then guess who's waiting at the gates for him? Who busts open the gate, welcomes him, and celebrates him? How amazing of a picture that would be. You know what I'm saying? I already know the AI cartoon version of that picture is coming if that does end up happening. I'm not saying he should obfuscate justice or something like that on this side of life, but I am saying that ultimately I would love for that guy to come to Jesus, and I would love for that guy to meet it whenever he dies, whether it's now or later, for Charlie Kirk to greet him at heaven's gate. By the way, Charlie Kirk is in heaven, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say that one time, you know what I mean? I'm confident in that, I don't know for sure. I can't know for sure, but I do know for sure, if you know what I mean, right? Like, given the, if you had to take an educated guess based on how the man lived his life and the things that he preached and said, even if you disagree with him on things, what I'm saying, his stance for the gospel and his understanding of Jesus and who he is and what he means for the world, that's definitely, you know, like down packed. It's now coming to light more and more that acts of violence from the type of acts of violence that are happening, that's coming out of the trans community, which is exactly what he was talking about before he was gunned down. You know what I'm saying? On the trend of, like, these are the type of people that you're aligning yourself with. You know what I'm saying? If you claim to be a Jesus follower, right? And you're talking, oh, Charlie was racist, he was the, bro, these people are largely about abortion and about LGBT and about all kinds of evil and licentious wickedness and all kinds of sexualizing children and MAP minor attracted persons, and, like, what I'm saying, this is what these this far left, like, crowd that's, like, celebrating Charlie's death and talking nonsense about him. This is who you guys are aligning yourself with. You know what I mean? How do you not see that that's not God like? This is not Christ like. You know what I'm saying? And again, just check your alignment. Check what group you're riding with. Check what crowd you're running with, and ask yourself if that's the crowd that represents Christ. You know what I'm saying? In true Charlie Kirk fashion, it's okay to disagree. If you disagree with me throughout this video, whoever you are, whether you be that uncle, whether you be somebody who's like that uncle, whether you be whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's what this man was about. He was about, like, engaging in conversations, having nuanced discussions with each other, and, like, hashing it out. I know this is a long video, but it is what it is. We're gonna hash it out, right? If you have some evidence to support your claim, I'd be happy to look into them, and if I'm missing anything, I would be happy to make the adjustment. So, like, let's say someone presents me with new information that I didn't have, and I went through that information, I would be happy to make whatever adjustment and say, hey, I was wrong on this, or I was, whatever, and we can have a discussion about that as well. Yeah, so I think that's it for this Charlie Kirk defense video. Again, no hard feelings to anyone, you know what I'm saying? If I sound like I'm getting a little irate and passionate in these videos, it is what it is. Again, we love Charlie Kirk and what he stood for. I'm standing on business 10-toe down to defend, this man's legacy and whatnot, and what he's built on, and against the slander that's coming out about him. I believe that these issues are closely related. I believe that this is a man that largely represented Christ and Christ's interest on the globe and in the social and political arena. I don't think Christians should stay away from that at all. I think that as long as our values are derivative from the biblical text, from proper understanding and application of the biblical text, then we are in our right to stand on business. The devil is interested in politics and influencing policies in your schools and in your colleges and your universities and in your the professors that are teaching these, like, places and whatnot. They actually have conspiracies behind these things of people who are funding these type of regimes and dividing, they have a whole divide and conquer sort of thing going on. And so, the devil is interested in these arenas, and I think for a reason. And the battleground is definitely on your knee spiritually first, but also we ought to, as Christians, be trying to elevate people into positions of power, into Congress and into seats and into our municipalities and our systems to represent the interests of Christ overall. And we should be, keeping our schools accountable, keeping our place accountable. It's a part of parenting. It's a part of taking care of our future generation. It's a part of taking care of Christ's interest on the earth. anyways, that's my video for this week. I love y'all. You know what I'm saying? If you enjoyed the video, definitely, try to like, comment, whatever, share the video and stuff on your platform. Anyways, God bless y'all. Then one.